Welcome to the Doctors of Running Virtual Roundtable, where we, a group of doctors of physical therapy, discuss the art and the science to the stuff that we are putting on our feet. We are continuing with our DPT approved awards today. We have been running through a lot of them. We've done daily trainer, 2 different sections of performance trainers where we talked about ones with plates, ones without plates. And today we are on episode number 68, and we're going to go into one of our favorite topics that we like to talk about here, and that is stability. What I will say is that if you're looking for our nitty gritty thoughts on stability, this won't be the episode to get the deep side of it. We're really just running through some of our favorite shoes and some of the best shoes that we saw in the stability category and the neutral stability category, which we'll talk about as we go. There's a lot of nuance that we see in the stability game and what it means to create stability. We think there's changes in how stability is going to be thought about in the running industry, or at least there should be. So just be patient with us. We're going to be releasing stuff in the future as we continue to process what we think stability would mean. But today at the roundtable, we have our classic group here. We have Matt, David, and I, and then we also get to welcome somebody who's new to the roundtable, but has been a contributor for us this entire year. It's Ryan Flugar. Ryan, thanks for joining us. Awesome. And Ryan, before we jump in, why don't you give us a quick kind of intro to yourself? Tell us, who you are, what you do for work, and maybe a little bit about your running.
Sure. So I've been working in a private outpatient sports medicine practice for about 8 years now. I got into Doctors of Running actually because I work with Nate. So
oh yeah,
him and I work together at the same clinic. So that's kind of how we got into it, or I got into it. I used to be a bodybuilder / weightlifter and had a ton of injuries. So Nate actually got me into running a little bit, and our first time out was rough together.
It was awesome. We went like 2 miles. In the first mile, we went out at whatever pace, like 9:30 or 10 or something. And then we turned around to go back, and we walked the rest of the way pretty much. And it was amazing.
It was terrible for me. But now I've been running a lot more. That was probably, 3 or 4 years ago, probably.
Yeah, 4 probably.
4 years ago. So since then, my running's changed a lot. I'm recently coming back from an injury, so I'm kind of getting back into it now. I was training for a half marathon for the fall and got hurt in September, so I'm just kind of getting back into my running mileage again. So
yeah, and it was all the shoe's fault. Nothing to do with training, no other factors. It's just all the shoe.
Yep, it was 100% the shoe.
Cool. Well, Ryan, thanks for joining us. And you guys, if you're a follower of what we're doing, you've probably seen his written stuff on the website already, and now you just get to put a face to the name. And hopefully we'll get Megan on here as well, because we've had Andrea on, who's part of the contributor team, and someday we'll get Megan on here, which would be really fun. Before we get into the first topic, I do want to give a shout out. Please, if you like what we're doing, leave us a review. If we could get even like 5 people stopping right now, taking 10 seconds to just like put a review out there for us, it really, really helps elevate this podcast and helps people see what we're doing, or just tell your friends about it. But really, those reviews go a long way. So subscribe to this podcast, or however you're listening to it, or if you're on YouTube, you can do the same thing. And then if you're on a podcast app, just take the time to review it. It really, really, really helps us out. And we've been super thankful for the following that we've had here, and hope that we can support what you guys want from this channel with the resources that we have. Okay, so let's start talking about stability. Our first category is pure stability, best stability shoes of 2021. I'm going to give you our definition of it, and then we'll kind of jump in. I am not contributing to this one because I am not a stability tester for us. And that's actually why we brought Ryan on, because he has been testing more of the stability shoes. I just usually don't get along with them, or they don't get along with me, or whatever. But here's our definition of stability shoes. It's a shoe that has intentional design to help guide the foot as it moves across the platform by utilizing some formal stability construction. So formal stability constructions, we've talked about a bunch of them, and I'm going to give a huge shout out to our stability guide on our website, doctorsofrunning.com. It has a list of all the different stability mechanisms that are used throughout different brands. So go check that out. But it's going to be things like medial posts, which is a firmer amount of foam on the inside, maybe guide rails, maybe sidewalls, maybe the width of a shoe. So just those are some of the formal stability measures that we're looking at for this category. We're also including the fact, does a company call this their stability shoe? That would automatically enter it into this category, a la like Kayano Light 2. That would come into this category, even though there's not dual density or guide rails. It has specific 3D construction for stability. But because it's called a stability shoe by the company, it would get entered into this category. And just a quick reminder for those who haven't heard us in the previous podcasts, we have our team has ran over 15,000 miles this year on over 110 shoes. And so that's the pool that we are drawing from. And then we rank these shoes based on our favorites. And then we get a consensus pick out of it. So let's get started. We're going to start with Matt today. He's going to give us his contributor pick. So we have our consensus pick, which is the number one that got the most points from the rankings. That will come last. But let's start with Matt and your contributor pick.
I think one of the ones that was a top contender for me, which we've really liked this shoe in the past, but I think the changes that were made this year were phenomenal. There's still some things I would like to see change, but the Mizuno Wave Horizon is again another major contender and was phenomenal. It's a shoe that we often suggest, at least I suggest clinically, for people that cannot handle posting because it's really based more on geometry and guidance. And I think the biggest change for me this year was the fact that the full length energy foam was so much more bouncy. Like, this is a premium shoe. It's a little heavy, and you notice that the first couple steps, but as soon as you get into your stride, all of a sudden it feels like a way lighter shoe. This shoe has some bounce, which is very surprising for a shoe that there's some good weight here, and there's a lot of shoe here. The stability is not biased in one direction. It is more guidance based. So those people that go either direction are going to be kept on the platform based on how the geometry is going on both the medial and lateral side. And it worked very well for me. I honestly, when I put it on, I'm like, is this really a stability shoe? But it became very evident based on the fact that, I can tell when I'm running in something that doesn't have stability as I start to fatigue probably within a couple miles, and I'll notice it. But this one could do 15, 20 miles, had no issue. And I was like, I don't even notice the stability, but I definitely know that it's a stable shoe, and it kept me going. I didn't fatigue. So it was very good for that reason. And I like it. It's premium. It's got a solid amount of cushioning there. The Mizuno Energy Foam is great. And it just works really well for a lot of people looking for that kind of premium shoe that provides stability, but doesn't push into their foot.
What were you going to say, DJ?
Yeah, real quick. I agree with everything Matt said. That's my number 2 pick for 2021. But yeah, the weight factor. So just make sure you give yourself a chance to adapt to the shoe. I love the Wave Horizon. It was my stability shoe of the year last year, but I did a 15-miler in it and my hamstrings were pretty sore.
Just from lifting the shoe
just
up.
From lifting the shoe. So it's like, it's a little bit heavier than your traditional running shoe. It's probably like 11 ounces, 12 ounces.
Yeah, I believe it's up in that realm.
It's pretty chunky, but it's really good. The transitions are really smooth. The dual density works really well with the sole flaring, and like it just like a lot of shoes will say they adapt to your foot strike and how you land and move. This one seems like it actually does pretty well. So yeah, that's all.
What do you guys have to say about how thick is the upper? Like I have only tested the Sky, and previous versions have been similar between the two in terms of uppers always thicker. Is that the case here?
Yeah, it's definitely the case here, where it took a little bit for the upper to break in, where, Mizuno typically has a little bit of a wider fit, but in the forefoot, when I first tried it on, I went, this is snug. But then as it
had the
I didn't
taper like
it.
the Sky 5?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
but that goes away.
Okay.
It's not as significant as the Sky 5.
Sky 5 taper was too much.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It
cool.
has like that double jacquard mesh, right? Like it kind of
it's a little thick.
It's different than the Sky 5 upper then.
Yeah, it is different.
Yeah,
some of the shape is a teeny bit similar, but the upper is totally different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to transition over to Ryan then. He's going to give he has been studying all day for this. He's been rehearsing and writing his note cards. He's got his note cards.
I do have note cards.
He is the most prepared of any of us for this. So give him huge kudos. But no, Ryan, why don't you give us your contributor pick, which is not the consensus pick one, but the one after that.
So my pick was the Asics Kayano 28. And obviously the Kayano's been around a long time. It's the 28th version of it. So the 28, the Kayano 28 comes with the Flight Foam Blast midsole, and I really like that. That's the same midsole used in the Nova Blast. So it's kind of more of a soft, bouncy ride, and you wouldn't think of having that in a stability shoe, but Asics uses their Duomax post to kind of help hold up the midfoot in that area, and add structure to the ride. It also has both an internal and external heel counter in the posterior aspect of the shoe, so that kind of helps guide the shoe down when you're running. It's not a light shoe by any means. I think it comes in at 10.9 ounces, so it's heavy. So this isn't going to be a shoe that you're going to take out and run a tempo run in. But for me, I used it on my longer recovery runs or just kind of some daily mileage when I wanted some stability in the foot, and it worked really good for that. So I had a good time running in this shoe. Obviously, there's a big difference between this shoe and the consensus pick that we'll talk about later. But I think for recovery and daily mileage, this shoe worked well for me.
Yeah. And the Blast, the Flight Foam Blast, if I remember right, there's like a top layer of that through the forefoot. It's not the entire thing. There's like Flight Foam Blast, which gives you that kind of like softer, bouncy top sole.
Yep.
But then it's still kind of a firmer EVA
Flight
that
foam.
stabilizes the platform a bit.
Correct. Yep. Exactly.
Cool.
That shoe was a huge shift for Asics and the Kayano because previously the major functions, the major stability methods was the posts, the medial posts that they use, and they had a pretty thick heel counter, but they totally adjusted and they had sidewalls in there. They totally redid the heel counter. The shoe got a lot softer. They took out, it's more of a, correct me if I'm wrong, right? It's a full ground contact outsole.
Right. It does.
Yeah,
Yep.
Big.
That
was a big shift for ASIC, which I think a lot of people, I've gotten good feedback from people that have been Kayano wearers and have really liked it. For me, it was too heavy for me just based on my mechanics, but kudos to ASICs this year. They've made some really big aggressive shifts in their footwear design. I'm very proud of them and I'm excited to see what comes next because it's been a little bit.
Totally. All right. And David, what's your contributor pick?
Yeah. So my consensus pick,
Not consensus.
Consensus pick. My number one is the consensus pick. So
There we go.
that's what I was trying to say. Words
Nailed
are
it.
hard. My number two is what Matt talked about. So we talked about the why am I blanking now?
Horizon 5.
Wave Horizon 5. We're doing great. And but mine's gonna be the Saucony Hurricane 23, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, there's been so many of those.
RIP 23. That's the last one.
They're gonna cancel the shoe. So if you like this shoe, go double down on this thing because it's not coming back.
We're not gonna get in trouble for that, right? You heard it here first.
They said it at the running event.
Yeah,
okay, got it.
That's where I'm quoting. I'm quoting Chad
right.
Holt.
As long as we
Chad
are
Holt from
quoting.
Saucony.
But this is another one of those premium stability trainers. It's a little bit of a tank. It's a nice tank, but it's on the heavier end. Full contact outsole. This thing is like indestructible. I mean, like I could probably run 400 miles and still have an outsole on this thing and have it look pretty decent. Like, and same with the midsole. It's got that. What did they call it?
Power Run Plus.
Power Run Plus. Yeah, it's been a
Stuff
while.
lasts
so
forever.
we've reviewed so many shoes. I like try to remember the midsoles of all these things. But and this one is traditionally posted. So you have a post from the rear foot that extends basically all the way through the midfoot and just shy of the forefoot there. It's a long post, but it's integrated really well. The midsole's on the softer end, but it has a responsive bounce to it despite the weight. And you can even see if I pull in real close for the listeners, I'm pointing to the bottom of the shoe along the medial aspect here, and they have a cutout through the outsole. That's all posting. Like if I tap on that, that's a hard plastic right there. And so when you land on it and you come over, you can really feel like that nice hold right over the navicular in the midfoot as you go, but it doesn't feel like it's jamming up into your foot. It's one of the best posts, I think, that have been integrated, like a genuine post into a stability shoe. So I was really happy with the Hurricane 23.
Hurricane 23 was one of the few stability shoes I actually ran in this year. And I usually don't because posts I just usually have problems when I run in them. And I couldn't believe that there was a plastic post that I didn't even like feel. Like it did not, like you said, it did not jar into my foot at all. I could actually run any of my mileage in it, which was super bizarre. Especially for having, instead of like a dual density foam, like a firmer foam, they went with a full on plastic
They went with a
piece.
full plastic, man.
Just cranked it on there. Cool. Well, we got to keep this moving because we got a whole other category to do. So let's talk. This is our consensus pick for stability shoes of 2021. Stability, again, is a shoe that has intentional design to help guide the foot as it moves across the platform by utilizing some formal stability construction. So this year's consensus pick is the New Balance Vongo V5. Does anybody have it?
Does anybody have the shoe? Anybody?
Oh, there we go.
Anybody at all? Yeah, of course.
Nobody holds it up.
Of course I have it.
Plain faces. Who wants to give kind of the rundown of the Vongo?
I could do it.
Great.
Yeah, so New Balance, basically it's the same midsole seen in the 1080. So it's like their premium plush trainer, but this is the stability version of that. And they use that same kind of knit upper. For me on the Vongo, for whatever reason, it locks down way better than the 1080 for me. Like it really holds me down to the platform, and the upper is incredibly cozy.
Did they do a different heel in that shoe than that weird heel thing?
That weird like little
yes
retro curve. Yeah,
I did not like that.
More built up heel counter in here.
That might be part of why.
That may be. Yeah, I didn't have any heel slippage. I felt very connected to the shoe. The upper is amazing.
Fresh looking.
Yeah, and the midsole is that same bouncy, soft, plush midsole, except what they did was they have almost like a beaded one piece. I guess you could call it a posting by definition. It almost doesn't seem like a post to me because it's all one piece and it's continuous and it's almost like integrated, like where you can go soft, firmer, firmest, softer.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's all one piece, but basically it's this medial wedge that goes from the rear foot and extends through the forefoot. But it's another one of those integrations where it's integrated so well, it doesn't feel like it's hard under your foot. It just feels like a nice little bit of padding and guidance. And I mean, it's not very often when the word stability and cozy are in the same sentence. And this is just a cozy shoe. It takes a lot to beat the Wave Horizon for me. And this did it. So kudos to New Balance.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you have to add?
Yeah, I agree. This was my number one pick as well.
This was everyone's number one pick.
Yeah. Okay.
Like this was consensus. Everybody picked it.
And it's kind of weird how they did their posting too. They injected pellets into the midsole, and then as you get more medial to the shoe, the pellets become more dense. So they tried to I think New Balance called it innovative gradient stability technology. And they tried to make it so that you didn't even feel the post. They kind of disappeared under your foot. And for me, I definitely noticed that. Like I would wear these in the clinic for 8-10 hour days and they were comfortable. Like DJ said, you don't notice that in a stability shoe that often, that you can just wear them all day and have it be comfy. The other thing that I really love about this shoe is the upper. The Hypo Knit upper is so stretchy that it's comfortable for your toes. I have a little wider midfoot and the upper stretches for me, so it just kind of fits snug in there and it was comfortable all day long. So
dang, can you guys tell that he prepped? He used Hypo Knit,
Totally.
pellet, whatever.
Was the rest of us what was that called
technology
again? The thingy?
The innovative gradient stability technology. I looked it up. I was like, I gotta find out what this is. So it's cool.
Hey, we gotta get some note cards on this podcast. That's all I'm saying.
All right, Matt, what do you got to add? Anything?
So I have to admit to the listeners, I've tried this shoe on about 4 times. I got to give a shout out to a snail's pace and various other companies that I've gone down and tried it. But every time I've gone to try it, I haven't purchased just because I had so many other shoes to test. But I guess I've tried it on enough to be like, I really like the shoe. This shoe is the most commonly suggested one that I've made to patients throughout the year. And people have unanimously enjoyed this shoe. It has worked very well for patients that I've worked with that need stability but might be sensitive to a post or looking for something that's just plain comfortable, whether it's walking or running. And it's just, again, just resoundingly with patients. And I don't know if it's just me matching the shoe right to the right person, but I've suggested this a lot. Mm-hmm. And so it's not common that I get a shoe where I'm like, hey, here's my top 3. go try these that I think might work for you, that they're like each time, like I went with the Vongo, I went with the Vongo, I went with the Vongo. I repeatedly made Mongo jokes for Blazing Saddles, and definitely like less than 10% of people got the reference. But
I didn't get it. I was just gonna say, I'm sorry, I don't get the
Yeah.
reference.
I don't get it either. I don't know.
nobody watched Blazing Saddles. It's a classic. No, oh gosh.
Sorry, Matt.
Yep. So that's my old movie references that no one understands.
Cool.
So it's the stability is integrated extremely well and combined with a very comfortable upper that works really well for people that want a little bit more cushioning, a stable ride, but also doubles as an all-day shoe. And this is one of my top picks for people that need a stable shoe. And if you're standing on your feet all day, this is a great option, just because the upper is super comfortable, as David said, and the fit is it just adapts really nicely to your feet. So I have to get, I finally caved and bought a pair, and they're coming on their way right now, because I'm like, I just have to run more in this, other than just getting like a mile or two at every running store that I've been to. But so yeah, I've definitely done that. They're like, yeah, just go take these outside. I'm like, sure. 10 minutes later, I'm like, so it happens.
And 10 minutes for him, that'll do some damage to it.
Yeah, that will do
Yeah,
some damage
right?
to the shoe.
Comes back, there's no outsole.
Yeah, but durability, from what I've heard from some patients that use these in prep for the LA Marathon, has been phenomenal. So I think, again, it's a really good job, New Balance, and I think this is where the industry needs to go with stability. Is that the better you can integrate this, and the less obtrusive you can make it while still doing its job, the better. And so I think this was a phenomenal shoe this year.
I think
too,
go ahead, David.
Well, it can double a little bit as a lifestyle shoe too, for a lot of people. Aesthetically, for being a premium high stack stability shoe, it's actually pretty appealing. I think you could wear it up a little bit with some jeans and whatever you want to wear. I've worn it in the clinic just fine. So
the all black version works very well. I've had several patients. Again, that's not something we talk about, is the color, but a lot of people that have used these professionally say that they go really well. And there's that colorway is available for people that do work and are looking for longer standing, a shoe for longer standing that needs some stability like that. It's apparently worked very well, because sometimes it can be tough with the more gradient colors, which we like, but doesn't always work well in certain environments. But
I've definitely worn my Nusas in the clinic before.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I went full unicorn
No
a couple
doubt.
times.
Also these are under 10 ounces, 9.7. I was just
which
looking
is
it up.
great for us. That
For the
much
amount of-
cushion.
exactly.
Yeah.
So here's kind of, I want to pivot to our next point, but something that I want to point out is that I think many of the shoes that we just mentioned are looking at a trend that we're seeing for people who've run in stability shoes. And it's painful to not be able to dig into what we mean by stability, knowing the variance of what stability means for each person, where they need it, why they need it, what direction they need it. Pronation's not bad. We will say that. But one of the things we're seeing is that the quality foams and the somewhat lighter foams that have been used in neutral shoes, Fresh Foam X in this case for the Vongo, Flight Foam Blast in the Kiona 28, Mizuno Energy in the Horizon 5. These stability shoes are actually getting the foams that people enjoy running in, which is pretty cool. And it's starting to bring down the weight. And I think that trend is just going to continue. We know that trend is going to continue. It's just a matter of when that stuff gets talked about, but it's coming. So it's pretty fun to watch. Matt, you get one more quick thing, then we got to move on.
Yeah. One of the questions that I get frequently, people knowing that I enjoy stability shoes, people going, hey, where are the stability racers of the lightweight stability shoes? And there's some cool stuff coming next year, but there's not a ton out there right now. The DS Trainer that we reviewed earlier, which is, I think, just outside of my reach, is kind of one of the rare ones that are left. Most of the shoes out there are going to be a little bit heavier. There's a couple variations, but when it comes to racing stuff and like lightweight stuff and things that like really pop off the ground, we kind of got into a little realm where a lot of stability shoes were just clunky. So we're now finally just starting to see that transition back. And hopefully those of us that need some stability will have some more options in terms of those lightweight, faster shoes coming in 2022, 2023, depending on how the availability goes. Yeah.
Cool.
I'll give a quick shout out to Newton Distance S9. That was a pretty solid like stability racer.
That's probably like one of the few ones you can take a distance now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyways,
All right, we're gonna move forward because we are overshooting our time, but it's okay. So we're gonna get one more category in here that we think is worth talking about, and this is neutral stability. So again, we're calling neutral stability a shoe that was not built with formal stability measures, but its construction leads it to being stable compared to other shoes within the neutral category. And so I think that there's, with the change in the thought on pronation over the last 15 years, 20 years, comes a shift in shoe prescription. I'm going to put quotations around prescription. It used to be stop pronation with whatever you got. So if someone has pronation, we're giving them a stability shoe. And while there's still a really big population that uses formal stability shoes and benefit from them, and there is a subset of the population that is going to benefit from them, both directions, there's another subset of this category who don't necessarily need a stability shoe, but just need a shoe that has a stable construction. So we like to talk about neutral stability. Again, this is within our stability guide on our website. It's on the top tab. You can find it up there if you want more details on which shoes. But we are going to talk about neutral stability shoes of 2021. So Matt, why don't you start us off again here with talking about your contributor pick, not the consensus pick.
Yeah, it was very
don't
close.
Say it. Don't say the consensus pick.
Don't worry. It was very close though. So
I can worry.
Yeah, that's fair. You should definitely worry. I am definitely very brain fatigued right now, so I could easily mess this up. But my pick was the Saucony Endorphin Shift 2 for multiple. Thanks, David. For those of you that couldn't see this, he took a loud sigh of relief there, but that is very fair, so I'm not judging. The Saucony Endorphin Shift 2 is a favorite of mine. I don't have my pair currently because I utilized them for a friend of mine who was dealing with Achilles issues and needed a little bit of guidance but couldn't handle a stability shoe, and it worked very well for him to unload this and get it back moving. So it worked well. I just lost my pair, so I'm excitedly waiting for version 3 to come out. So I like it because there's what?
I was going to say something about the shift line.
Yeah.
You have the extended heel counter that goes down into the midsole.
Yeah.
We've talked about that being like a load sharing issue, just kind of like for people who know orthopedics, surgeries that use these kind of like plates for RIFs and stuff. Anyway, has that, and then it has some buildup of the outsole. For next year, Saucony is already talking about the Shift 3 falling into their structured cushioning category. Yeah. So I do think that's a pretty solid way to talk about neutral stability, which would be structured cushioning. Unless they're expanding that to all of their stability models, then we can't use that. But
we'll have to see.
I had the Shift 2 on my list as well.
Did you notice a change in the cushioning compared to the first one?
Softer.
So I had the same thing. It was supposed to be an upper change, which the upper change was great because it was much more secure than the first version. So it locked my foot in better. The overlays, which I normally complain about in shoes, they actually were set up well enough. They actually acted like sidewalls. So I found version 2 more stable, but had a better transition than version 1, just because the midsole was a little softer. So that heel transitioned a little better. The upper locked the foot down a lot better, but I love that external heel counter, that design coming right down on the medial aspect did really well. I could take that shoe as long as I wanted. Plus it was the foam and the way the geometry of the shoe was one that like, hey, it is a little bit heavier. I could still do up-tempo stuff in it. It did plenty of up-tempo long runs in it, and it was great. So definitely a favorite from this year, and refined it even better from the original version.
One thing I'll add on that, and Ryan had this experience, Andrea has this experience, where with a lot of the Endorphin line, especially with the Shift, they half size up, and it's because of those overlays that are just too tight, and Ryan got some numbness, I know, just from running in that one. So sizing wise, it's worth trying on the Shift, but I agree with kind of everything you said. It was my number 1 in this category. This is the shoe that I've recommended, or it's on my list of shoes that patients that I have in the clinic. It's the number 1 that I've recommended this year is the Shift, because it kind of spans that neutral category into those people who need some stability. Obviously the rocker has been a big part of why I recommend it, for the right person with the right conditions, all that kind of stuff. But so I can't talk about that one. So I'll give my contributor pick, which was the Hoka Rincon 3, which was a surprising one for me in a way. At the same rate, pretty much every Hoka's pretty neutrally stable shoe, because they just operate off of that wide platform that sits under the shoe. The one thing that's added in the Rincon that I thought made it very stable was the huge cutout underneath the crash pad, or where your heel comes down and hits the ground. I said crash pad for you, DJ.
What's a crash pad?
He's just going to totally deny this right now, but
yeah, it was really,
Don't
it's really deep and in a bit wider, and so you can actually feel your heel sink down into the middle. So whether you're an inner and out kind of roller, supinator, pronator, whatever, it's going to give a little bit of that guidance combined with the wider platform. And if you've ran in the Rincon, you know it's not the softest Hoka out there. So you have a firmer platform, a little bit of that kind of where your foot is cradled. I will say it's got the traditional Hoka fit. So if you get the Hoka blister and you hate that, the Rincon 3 probably won't work for you, or unless you want to blister or callus up there, and then you'll be good to go. All right, Ryan, why don't you go next?
I went with another ASIC shoe, Trinusa 13. I picked it mainly because of the color. No, I'm just kidding. I do like the color. I know they're kind of flashy looking.
Oh yeah.
And they match all my clothes. So it has a little bit of a wider sole, and it has that guide sole technology that helps to kind of get like the toe spring that helps guide it forward, which kind of helps keep your foot planted and moving forward. Again, with the flight foam, a little stiffer. It's kind of a stiffer shoe, especially in the forefoot, which kind of helps with the rocker. And I think all those together kind of add to some of the stability features of the shoe. It's kind of a unique shoe because it's really designed for triathlons, right? So it'd be after you destroy your body, swimming and biking, and then you got to run. So you want something that's going to actually help guide some support after you're feeling tired after those other activities. I used it for daily training mileage, but it also could be used for a tempo run as well. Like that toe spring really helps kind of spring you forward, and with the stiffer midsole, it worked really well for that. So
for sure, and a secure upper helps.
Yeah,
What you got, Matt?
I agree with Ryan on the Nusa Tri 13. That was on the top of my top 3 this year for this category. And it's just the way the shoe is set up. And also the upper is amazing. I ran up to 20 miles in that shoe without socks and had no blisters, which I've never experienced that before. But this was one of the shoes I used extensively as a lightweight trainer and as a tempo and long up-tempo effort shoe, especially because my wife was prepping for her US 50K championships. This shoe was on my feet a lot doing longer tempo runs and worked great. It is a little firmer. So it's like 8-ish ounces. So a lot of people are going to find this as a great alternative to like carbon plated shoes, because it feels like there's a plate, but there isn't. It's just a little bit stiffer, and it's just comfortable and a more stable setup with the wider sole and how well you roll off that forefoot. So another big pick and a suggestion in addition to the Evo Ride 2, which is similar shoe, just different upper, for a lot of people having trouble with carbon plated shoes this year.
Cool. All right, DJ, give us your contributor pick.
Yeah, my contributor pick has, I'm joking. For the listeners, I just held up the ASICS Nusa since we just talked about it a lot. It is a great shoe, though. That was my number 3. So I'll just leave it there. But my number 2 is the On Cloud Swift. So a lot of times when you talk about stability, a lot of people talk about posting, they talk about pronation, they talk about a lot of those things. But another word that gets brought up is guidance. And with the On shoe, you have that deep midline groove that just rides from that rear foot all the way through the forefoot. And you also have a little bit of like that classic rocker geometry, but it's not super dramatic either. And so if you've run in an On shoe before, they do tend to be a little bit on the firmer side, that helium foam. And so you have a little bit of a firmer base underneath you. You have these deep midline grooves that go down the midline of the shoe. And you also have that speed board, that plastic plate essentially that runs through the entire length of the shoe. And one thing I liked with this shoe specifically was that the upper actually locked down pretty well and like held that foot onto the platform.
And that it looks amazing.
It's aesthetically, it's pretty pleasing. Yeah.
It's very pleasing. Oh yeah.
Yeah. You could totally dress that up.
Oh yeah.
You have a little bit of forefoot flexibility. That's something that you don't get in some of these.
Yeah.
You have those deep flex grooves that go through it. And it's honestly a pretty smooth running shoe. If I didn't love number 1 as much as I did, like this is in the running for that stable neutral category. and it's surprisingly responsive too. I've taken this on some pretty quick runs and I was like, oh snap, like this can actually move pretty well. So
That's awesome.
yeah, the On Cloud Swift, that would be it. I mean, it's mostly a road shoe. It's advertised as an urban running shoe. Take what you will with that. Road, sidewalk, I guess. Like
I could never wear it in Point. We're not urban enough here. Yes. Don't have enough buildings.
If your population is under 100,000, you cannot run it.
Not wear it.
But it's a great shoe and it can handle a little bit of off terrain and I enjoyed it.
That one's a little different than the rest of them. That's pretty sweet, but I love the reasons. Okay, time to hit our consensus pick for neutral stability shoe. Again, that's a shoe that was not built with any formal stability measures, but its construction lends it to be more stable compared to other shoes within the neutral category. I bet if people have been following us, I bet they could guess what shoe this is. I'm the only one who didn't have it in my top 3. The rest of you guys had it. 2 of you had it as your 1. 1 of you guys had it as your 2. Anyway, it is the Mizuno Waverider 25. The Mizuno Waverider 25 has the classic wave plate in there, as well as a full upgrade to full Mizuno Energy from the 24, which just had the wedge. So we're going to let one person kind of break down the 25 for us and why we think that's a stable neutral shoe. Matt, why don't you take it for us? And then we're going to close things off.
So the Waverider has always done this, and things changed a little bit with the Mizuno and the full length Mizuno Energy sole because it made it just a little bit softer. But that wave plate just acts as a very nice guided. It facilitates that roll forward, and those little bumps there, it's not that different from the Inspire. The Inspire just has a little bit larger bump there, but those things on the side kind of act like gentle guidance forward. And it's not enough that somebody's going to notice like, oh my gosh, I feel this post into my foot. Yeah, the design of the plate, what really improved here that was different from previous times is how flexible the forefoot is, and that just transitioned really quickly off the front of the foot. So just the way all of those elements add together, this is another shoe that, again, I typically need stability, but I can run long runs in this shoe without fatiguing. And that tells me, hey, this is doing pretty well. So yeah, it just did. It's a classic. It tends to do this every single year. And I was impressed that they were shifted to a softer sole that didn't compromise the kind of naturally stable ride that the rider is known for.
Totally. It's a great shoe.
Yep.
All right. So there you go, everybody. There's our conversation on stability in terms of our DPT approved awards and some of our favorite stability shoes from 2021. Again, we really, really, really want to dive further into this conversation on stability because of the nuance that it carries between all of us and what different individuals need. David's just trolling me with that slipper. I wear that thing every single day. He's holding up the Deckers Sniper Mid, SNPR Mid. I wear that every day. It's an amazing slipper. Let's keep going forward. We got to finish this thing off though. Again, we just want to thank you guys so much for the support in 2021. It's been a really fun year for us. The most shoes we've ever tested by a lot. It's been fun to develop new partnerships with companies. The viewership and followership has been amazing. We also want to give a huge shout out to Bach for curating all of our information for everybody. And we are always open to questions. And so please reach out to us through any of our media channels on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or you can email us at darksrunning@gmail.com. We get to those as best we can. We just all have full-time jobs plus other things. So we do our best. So please be patient with us. We'll get to you as soon as we can. And again, if you can, leave us a review. It really does help us out. So if you didn't do it at the beginning when I bugged you about it, maybe you can do it now at the end. But we'll be back next week. Enjoy your December, everybody.